Welcome back, rivals. This is Xonia, and you are in the zone. In this video, made for the YouTube video contest, I'll be covering the basics of one of my favorite game modes, T2 Survivor. For newcomers, T2 means unlimited star count. My hope is to get newer players up and running so you can tackle this mode with a better understanding of how to do well, and then cover one of the most dominant decks in the entire category. The basic outline of Survivor can be found right up here. If you go to Game and then click on Game Modes, that'll take you to this page. You can scroll down to Survivor, click here, and you can see an outline of all of the important information and the rules. I'm just going to cover the basics here pretty fast for you though. The basic outline of Survivor is to win as many consecutive matches as possible. You'll start with 13 pills and 12 life. And then after 3 wins, you'll go down to 12 pills and 13 life. At 6 wins, you'll go to 11 pills and 14 life. At 10 wins, 10 pills and 15 life. And then at 15 wins, you'll hit the final change of 9 pills and 15 life. So basically, as you get more and more wins, each victory will earn you more and more Clints. But this review is about the general metagame of the mode and not about the rewards. For those interested though, if you do really well, the top players can also earn tokens and credits for being at the top for the day, week, and month. Generally, to hit the top 25 for the day, which will net you 1 gold token, you'll need a minimum of about 10 consecutive wins and probably more like 12 or more. So first off, if your collection is lacking in some of the bigger super powerhouse cards, don't expect to do well in this game mode, honestly. Unless you really understand how to tip the odds in your favor, breaking 10 wins can feel like an almost insurmountable task, not to mention a huge time investment at 4 minutes per game. In Survivor T1, you can break out some of your lower cards that have no other home, like Lee's Teria CR or Zatman. Those 3-star cards that don't quite fit in the T2 format, but have been permabanned from every other mode for, well, forever. The T1 format can be very unforgiving, though, because drawing your low-star hand can end your run then and there. However, if that kind of strategy is your cup of tea, then enjoy. Honestly speaking, I've never cracked 10 in T1 format, but I've also never really put the time required to learn it well enough to beat 10. As for T2, let's review what's basically happening here. And I'm going to go ahead and show you my go-to deck as I go through what's actually going on here. This is my go-to T2 deck. As for T2, let's review what's basically happening. As you continue along, you will gain life, but lose pills. This means you will have to force or drain pills from your opponents, as you will start some games at a 4-pill deficit. Thus, the mainstays of most long-lasting T2 decks are pill manipulation and attack manipulation. The most popular is to run the leader Morphin in your deck. At 8 power and 5 damage, as you can see here, he still allows for KOs with most of your other cards, and has a higher power than many other leaders. Morphin will return up to 3 pills to you over the course of the match. However, he now has a max of 10, while he didn't have any max long ago. So, stay under 10 pills or you won't be getting any of those back. Now, why would we choose Morphin over, let's say, Eclor or Melody, 2 other leaders that have pill manipulation? Well, knowing your own pill play is far more reliable than guessing your opponent's. Eclor also has an unassisted 7 power and a minimum on her pill drain, so she's a bit harder to manage. Melody only returns pills when you lose, so unless you have a guaranteed 1-round winner, you'll likely only see a return of 2 pills over the entire game, if you hold round 2 and round 3. There's no max, but it's less than Morphin, and she's also an unassisted 7 power. Leaders are optional and not guaranteed to show up, so they can even be risky because running 2 clans means one of them will not have its bonus when you draw it, unless you run 9 cards or more, which is a whole different can of worms, but you can here because this is T2. But whatever you decide, you should always include some kind of pill manipulation if you want a better shot at winning matches well into your 10+ win runs. I've also found the risks of a leader, quote-unquote risks, worth it, but it is optional in your deck. The other way is to force pills via attack manipulation. If you always start with a potential olding win, meaning you don't have to play any pills and you'll win the round, then your opponent will always have to play more pills, at least 1 more, to try and take the round from you. This then lets you play less pills on round 1, which will pay off later whether you win or lose the first round. Due to this, most players will look to the attack manipulation clans of Hive, Hurricane, Junks, Montana, Rescue, Sentinel, Sacrom, and Uppers as at least one of their clans of choice. So, how do we narrow down which are the better clans out of those I just listed for Survivor? Well, let's look at 3 other points and then see which of these clans fulfill most of these requirements. First, as you can see in this deck, everything should 2-hit KO with everything. If you can't hit at least 12 damage with every possible combination of all your deck's cards with 1 Fury allowed, your deck will not have enough damage to sustain pressure over all 4 rounds. This means any card with 4 damage is pretty much automatically void unless every other card is 6 damage or more in your deck. If you're running Morphin, then that option is out. This is the main reason why I personally do not value some great 4-star cards, for example, Junks' Gibson, as highly as many others do. Furthermore, too many 5 damage cards can also ruin runs when you hit opponents with 13 life or more. So, your low damage cards ideally should also be your defenders. For example, DR, as seen here in Uranus and in Grax. I recommend that you make sure at least half of your cards have 7 or more damage. So here you can see Scrum hits 8, Dorian hits 7, Herman hits 8, and then Jackie CR is an unmitigated 6, so that's why we let her through for now, and we have a high amount of DR. But basically, you should aim for at least 4 cards with 7 or more damage. This is a hefty order, but being able to keep the KO pressure on is vital in forcing your opponents to make a mistake. Second, your clans must have 2 huge DR with low mins. We're talking -4 or -5 with a minimum of 1 or 2. If your main goal in T2 is to put pressure on by threatening a KO, then the best decks need to have ways to take that pressure off of themselves. Your opponent will always bring several huge 7 to 8 damage 5-star cards. They will also bring at least 1 SOA, so that's why I advise to have more than 1 large DR in your deck. Since 8 is basically the maximum base damage, aside from Miss Sloan, who is the only card with 9 right now, your opponent can only reach a maximum of 16 damage in 2 rounds. This means you would need a 5 DR card to force them to at least Fury for the KO attempt, which is important as it will save you pills to cover that option, and discourage many players from making such a risky move. As a result, -5 DR is really not optional, it's almost a rule. They should also ideally be min 1. And why? Well, if you only reduce the opponent to 2 damage, they can still threaten a KO via Fury in early rounds with another 8 damage card, if you only have 1 DR. If you can prevent even a Fury KO attempt, you will never have to worry about your opponent winning in 2 rounds. And when you don't have to worry, you can keep your cool in the middle of intense Survivor battles and make better decisions. KOing is the easy way to win, but you really only need to do more damage over the 4 rounds in order to win. And often your opponent's deck will be built to 2-hit KO, and not be built to last through 4 rounds of play. Most decks have the gaping weakness of only being meant to last for 3 rounds. The number of battles that I have won because my opponent drew Amber but couldn't finish me during their Courage rounds is ridiculous. Free, unblocked damage against a 6/4 Amber is your best friend. Stay away from Amber. And finally, going second is worth its weight in gold. When you get to decide 3 of your 4 matchups, winning is much, much easier. So if you can manage to bring lower star cards that can easily beat most 5-star cards, then you can choose the matchups you want to happen. So when we look at all these requirements, I think Sacrom and Uppers are the 2 clans of choice for top players. With minus attack manipulation of a min 3 from Sacrom to force pills and the ability to run Guru CR, one of the big 5, Grax, one of the best 4 stars in the game with -5 min 1 DR, And even, surprisingly enough, the 3-star card Uranus, again, -5 DR, -1, with only 3 stars, you can cement going second along with forcing pills while not letting them do any damage whatsoever. No Guru CR? Consider another super broken 4-star card. Makra. An amazing choice, the 4-star slot. Or if you want more KO power, as you saw in my original deck, I will often run Scrum XXII. Because opponents are usually too busy throwing SOA at the DR to actually do some damage against me. Virginia is also quite good, but I already have my SOA from my uppers half. I personally run 3 here in a split deck and use Morphin as my leader to guarantee that pill manipulation. Now uppers, on the other hand, is so good that it is the hardest to choose just 4 cards from, because all of their cards are basically perfect for this type of T2 deck. You can run an amazing card like Lady if you want more DR and 8 damage. You can go to your 4-star card option, which is Jackie CR, perhaps the most obvious choice for this clan, as a 4-star with 8 power and SOA. You could even throw in cards like Hefty, which I had for SOB if you don't have Guru CR and want SOB. Even Dorian, a straight-up 8/7 with no ability, is absolutely fantastic. And then there's my go-to 5-star, Herman, who forces pills better than almost any other card in the game. Sabrina, even, is a nightmare at 9/7 on courage rounds. And you can even go with Nega D LD as a massive finisher that only gets better versus SOA. And let's not stop there. Look at Magnar, 7/7, that can offer a very dangerous counterattack on reprisal rounds with protection power and damage. With all of these cards, it's no wonder that uppers is definitely your go-to clan of choice when you're looking at Survivor T2. Now, as for the other clans, let's just go alphabetically. First up is Hive. Hive is a very promising clan, as this format plays to its strength, which is Equalizer, giving you an additional -3 attack for every star you play against. However, it's still a young clan. With a lineup of cards like Mana Circe, Aegis, and Strigoi, it's almost there. 13 is even quite amazing. However, she has a min of 1, which really hurts. And even the 3-star card of Ram could have almost put the nail in the coffin to replace Sakram if she had 5 damage. It's so close. New additions, like just recently's Hydra Riva, is also really great, basically being the exact same as Lady, but she's variable and she can't stop a KO unless minus life is involved, so I would still say she's slightly inferior. Given a bit more time, I think Hive will definitely become a viable clan, but it's just missing that one last amazing T2 card, which perhaps could be a solid 5-star SOA. So keep an eye out for that in the future. Up next, let's take a look at Hurricane. Hurricane has been coming closer to being T2 Survivor viable in a half deck, but it lacks power, is more predictable, and, of course, has its own unstable bonus. It lacks the DR to replace Sakram, because it has that 5-star DR, and it lacks the power and damage combination that Uppers has. Its only real 4-star card, with the claim to fame, is Quetzal, who is definitely scary, but he can be DR'd, unlike Jackie CR. Noctizuma CR is obviously amazing, and El Divino, sadly, while very good, lacks power, and is almost a first-round forced play. It also falls to many cards in T2. El Jaguar would be better with either, say, a min 1 maybe, or maybe 8 damage. Hurricane is meant to play with plus life, so many of its really great 5-star cards revolve around getting additional life and offer poor KO options. They're good, but an inferior version of the best clans. Next, let's take a look at Junks. Junks can definitely replace Sacrom right now. However, it requires you to have DJ Core CR. Which, let's face it, most of us don't. And unlike Sacrom, there's no real good replacement to step in. Peeler is workable, though obviously he still has that high min of 3. And Locke, down here, is an absolute beast to be reckoned with. But there's truly no solid third card without DJ Core. You can, of course, look at cards like Mazg. Okay, he's very good, but he's like a 5-star Jackie CR with less use. Fuzz is also really great, and a go-to card for many people. However, with only 6 power, that will only get you so far. Even Haze is an absolutely fantastic card. However, running Haze and Herman is a bit too risky for me against SOA clans. Cards like Tehem lack damage, and Sazzle Lovelace, well, she's vulnerable to a lot with only 6 power and no DR to back it up. She'd be your one allowed round loss. They're there with Core, but not really with anyone else. And even so, would you really want to have to use your DJ Core CR mostly on the defensive? Yeah, me neither. But the option still remains there. You could make it work. Next up is Rescue. Rescue will always be mono only and has no real pill manipulation. Also, its bonus is hurt by a leader, and in general there are some great cards to run like Marco CR and Reeve. However, having to run 8 cards in a clan with a large number of conditional cards just really complicates things. They're not horrible, but they don't meet most of the requirements that we've mentioned. Sorry, I totally skipped over Montana. Montana is fantastic, also boasting minus 12 attack, but its minimum is 8. And when you look at most of its 5-star cards, honestly, the damage is there, but the power is not. Of course, we have cards like Enzo, but it's not quite enough. And of course, a card like Vicky CR might also cement your chance in order to run something from Montana. However, Montana really lacks a very good DR card in the 5-star slot. And also, they're really, well, I could say there used to not be any good 4-star slot cards, but recently some better cards like Iris Morana have been released. So I suppose you could say there are still cards like Iris Morana or Fairbanks who have been released that will really do an excellent job of messing up your opponent. However, a lot of these cards are going to force you down a path of absolute power manipulation, which means that versus SOA clans, you're going to find yourself struggling quite a bit. And in addition, you're also going to have to pill, and that's the main knock against Montana. You are going to have to pill in order to get past that minimum 8. And our goal here is to not spend any pills at all, if at all possible, when we have to ult, especially when you get to the later rounds. Because you're going to have to play that extra pill, it's really going to end up hurting you in the long run. A lot of these cards are very good, but they're just not quite there. Either they're a little too conditional, like say here with Leon, or perhaps they require waiting via growth like Magnolia, or support, meaning you would need to run mono from Evola, or Dawn, who lacks power, even though he does an excellent job. It just isn't quite there for Montana. You have better options in uppers. And then, finally, we have Sentinel. Of course, we have some amazing cards like Copper CR, Aviria LD, cards like Hawk, or even Pavel. Absolutely amazing cards. You could even go with Hawk if you wanted to, though personally he doesn't work out quite so well for me. Even Owen and Rust are really good. However, my main frustration with Sentinel is that many of these cards, much like Montana, just barely are great. Many have 6 damage, none are 4-star cards, and when hit with SOA, Copper CR is going to fall even further and even faster than Herman. Hawk, for example, is basically just Jackie CR with an additional star and 2 less attack manipulation. So sadly, Sentinel is always going to be playing second fiddle to uppers when it comes to T2. So I hope you can see why uppers and Sacrom have dominated for so long. There are basically only 2 other types of decks that you can try to run. One is to go SOA all the way, as they ignore DR, so you could consider running Amber here too, but you'll have to be much more precise with your pilling without her. The other option has only recently become more viable, and that would be the plus power clan deck. Most usually, it's going to be Uluwatu, but Bangers with Shan CR has its own place in there as well. The main issues with these decks to me are that they lack real DR, and they won't win olding battles as easily. All their DR options are often a bit too small. Tanman is amazing, but with only 2 DR, he may as well not have any at all. These decks will dominate if they can catch you in a few mid-pill battles and win, say 4 or 5 pills. But patience and striking at the right time will almost always mean a victory for the attack manipulation clans. Rarely you will see the additional SOB clan come in with pill manipulation, for example Piranhas. But to me, they often lack power and damage. And of course, SOA cards absolutely crush a lot of what they have going for them. So if you just want to have some fun though, go into T2 and bring a skills deck with Amber and Kalis CR and watch people get really frustrated. One of my final pieces of advice is to be careful with your round 1. Honestly, most T2 survivor battles are decided after round 1. If you play too many pills and lose, it's over, especially if they have Morphin and enough DR to stall for 3 turns. Additionally, you can ult to try and get a pill advantage and end up losing to their ult or their low pill play, and it may be over if they get to choose who will play who, meaning you end up playing first. The main point is that if you can win round 1 and do enough damage to put pressure on for every following round, they will almost always make a mistake. They will have to play perfectly for the following 3 rounds without choosing their matchups in order to beat you, and that's not easy to do. The key is to make them play pills while you stall to get your second hit in for the win. If you can do more damage and win 2 strategic rounds, the game will be yours. My biggest piece of advice is to not be afraid to be down by 3 or 4 pills in order to win round 1, because the pressure of a KO will force far more than that to be played in following rounds. Just be patient and go for sneaky KOs if possible, playing just a few pills, not olding and not going all in, to see if you can catch them off guard on round 2 or 3. This is why constant KO pressure, enough DR to hold off their KO threat, going second, and pill manipulation or forcing pill play is, and likely always will be, the best combination for succeeding in Survivor. Using these strategies, albeit expensive, will help you to hit 10 wins almost daily without too much effort, assuming you have the time. At the very least, it won't feel like 10 coin flip matches. Sure, some matches will always be coin flips, but your goal in T2 Survivor is to minimize the number of those, and increase the number of easy wins that you can get through simple strategy and understanding of the game that you are playing. I hope this helps you get a good feel for Survivor T2 and why you see many of these types of decks. Almost always uppers and Sacrom. and many times running Morphin. If you can find a way to trump this tried and true formula, you'll be well on your way to getting 10+ winning streaks whenever you have the time to go into the survivor rooms. Just remember, enter with caution. Thanks again for watching. As always, I really value your input, so leave me a comment down below with your opinion on Survivor T2 and how you view the format. And as always, if you liked this video, make sure to hit that like button. If you really liked it, make sure to share it with your friends. And as always, don't forget to subscribe for more of my Urban Rivals videos. This is Xonia, and you've been in the zone.